When you think of a pickup truck, you probably think of a half-ton like a Ford F-150 or a Chevy Silverado 1500, but a lot of people doing a lot of things are probably just fine with a midsizer, and they're finally getting the attention they deserve from all the manufacturers that play in the segment. Welcome to Out Motorsports, channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake, and I'm here with Ford's updated entry. This is the 2024 Ford Ranger XLT. Now, every manufacturer takes a little different approach to what they want to be the best at or really competitive at, and some are putting more of an emphasis on off-roading, things like the Toyota Tacoma, the Jeep Gladiator, but others in the space, namely Chevy and GMC, are really focused on towing as one of their big strengths, and Ford came to play in that space as well. So this is the Ranger. They have updated it pretty heavily for 2024. They'll call it all new, but it's a modification of the old platform it was on, so that's up for debate, but it's a huge, huge update. And every Ford Ranger except the Ranger Raptor is rated to tow 7,500 pounds. And you know that on this channel, if you're rated for something above about 7,000 pounds, we're gonna do something difficult with it. So let's talk about what this truck is, what's new for 2024, and then we will talk all about how it tows. You can see my trailer's hooked up to it, so we'll get it out on the road and see how it tows. So first things first, what is new with the Ranger for 2024? Well, like I said, Ford is gonna call this all new, but then they kind of admit that it's not all new, all new. The outgoing model of Ranger was on what they called the T6 platform that underpins that prior gen Ranger and the current Ford Bronco. And Ford is calling this platform the T6.2. Now in software development, which is what I also do full-time, a dot release is not a full revision of the product, it's an evolution of the product. So that's not a bad thing, and Ford has done a lot here to shift the platform, make things better both on-road and off-road for performance. So just a couple quick things. First things first, they stretched the wheelbase by 2 inches and they widened the track by 2 inches. That's gonna make everything be more stable. That helps while you're towing in particular, and it helps with general on-road unloaded ride. They also moved the front axle forward 2 inches to get that 2 inches of extra wheelbase out of it, and that improves your approach angle if you're off-roading. So kind of got a bonus there. The other thing they did with this platform is they changed how the rear shocks are mounted. So they said that improves stability and chassis performance when you've got something loaded up behind you, like you do with a trailer. So those are kind of the big updates to the platform, and then of course there's an all-new interior. I'll show you that in just a second. Now drivetrain-wise, things are carryover but also new. So this one, I'm actually really happy this is an XLT, because normally we get sent the fully loaded models of whatever we get to drive, which is nice because you see all the new features, but you don't always get to see what most people are gonna buy. So this one being an XLT, it's got the smallest of the engine offerings, it's got cloth seats, it's got the base audio system, it doesn't have a sunroof, it's kind of an average truck. It's everything you need and nothing you don't. So again, we'll get into the interior in just a second, but drivetrain-wise, this has the 2.3 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder. It's part of the EcoBoost family, and you'll find this engine in the base Broncos as well. Now in this case, it makes 270 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque, and unlike the Bronco, you cannot have it with a manual transmission. Your only option here is the 10-speed torque converter automatic. Now this one is a 4-wheel drive truck. You can get it as 2-wheel drive if you don't care. I always raise an eyebrow at 2-wheel drive trucks because I want my utility vehicles to be the most utility that they can be, because otherwise I'd rather be in a sports car. But in any case, 2-wheel drive versus 4-wheel drive does not change your tow rating. They're all rated for 7,500 pounds. And if you want a little more oomph out of it, you can get the 2.7 liter turbo V6 now. That was not an option previously on the old Ranger. That's gonna give you 315 horsepower and 400 pound-feet. And then if you want that Ranger Raptor for more off-road, high-speed sort of adventures, that's gonna be even more. That uses the twin turbo 3 liter V6, but that one's gonna lose out on tow rating because it's a softer suspension. And so other than that Ranger Raptor, they're all gonna be rated for that 7,500 pounds of trailer weight. Now, this one does have the advanced trailer tow package with tech package. So what that means is you've got 360-degree camera view, you've got a trailer brake controller, you've got Pro Trailer Backup Assist, where you've got the little knob you can turn and it'll back the trailer up for you if you haven't figured that out yet. And you've got a couple other little techie bits in here. One thing I don't love, you do not get trailer blind spot monitoring on this truck. That's kind of a bummer, given Ford does it and they do it well on the F-150 and the Super Duties, but this one just doesn't include it. Not sure why, but something to do with the tech involved. Now, payload is also important to talk about here, because every manufacturer will say, oh, we have X amount of payload, but based on the truck you're driving, the trim you've got, the options you've got, it's going to be different model to model, like specific vehicle to vehicle, VIN to VIN. So let's take a look. You can always check looking at the driver's door sticker, and stop that chime. But looking here at the driver's door sticker, this actually has a pretty high payload. This is rated for 1,642 pounds of payload. That is really fantastic. It's actually higher payload than you're gonna get out of a lot of F-150s and other half-ton trucks. So if you think about that, it's going to actually be pretty high, given you can have, let's say, 10% tongue weight back here, in this case, about 700 pounds. That leaves you a lot of space within your payload for more people and things in the truck. So that, I think, is pretty fantastic. Now keep in mind, if you get the bigger engine, if you get a sunroof, if you get heated leather seats, if you get some other options here, it's going to detract from the payload because all those things are heavier. So you want to be careful, but if you're shopping on a dealer lot, just go look at the door stickers when you're checking out different trucks. And even if you end up speccing one out yourself, it's not on the lot, it'll give you a decent idea of what your payload will be. Now, as far as what my trailer is, we can talk about that for just a second here. You can see most of it in the shot. This is a 20-foot aluminum enclosed trailer. I do have my BMW race car in here. I was actually supposed to be towing to Watkins Glen up in New York this weekend to go race with a bunch of my friends, and my race car burned a hole in the gas tank the other week, and now it's in the trailer thinking about what it's done. So it's in there, acting basically as dead weight. Fully loaded, we're right at about 6,800, 7,000 pounds. I've got a bunch of tools, spare parts, tires, all that in there. And I've measured before, and we're right at about 10% tongue weight, so 680 pounds, give or take. Now, I would normally set up weight distribution on this truck and trailer combo, but my weight distribution hitch broke. So we're just going with it. Now, normally I'd say that's not really the smartest idea, but honestly, there's not a lot of sag going on. We've got really nice distribution. Like I've got the tongue weight measured, so I'm not really concerned. If you want the ultimate performance, yes, weight distribution will always help if you're towing 50% or higher of your truck's rated capacity. Now, I did want to just kind of theorize before we start towing here. This truck unloaded feels pretty soft, and I'm just curious how that's going to do with the trailer on there, even though we're within the weighted rate. I also think the EcoBoost Turbo 4 feels really good, really punchy, unloaded. So again, we'll see how it does. Now, I drove this EcoBoost motor last week in a Ford Bronco Everglades, and it felt, you know, punchy, but maybe a little overburdened in some cases. The trick here is that in Ranger form, that engine is working with almost 1,000 pounds less curb weight. So unloaded versus unloaded, the Ranger's at a big advantage. Of course, now I've got that 1,000 pounds from the Bronco plus another 6,000 pounds, give or take, on the back of it. So let's hop in and talk about the interior real quick, and then we'll hit the road and tow with this thing and see how it does. All right, so let's take a look inside the 2024 Ranger. Like I said, this is the XLT, so you get these cloth seats. Ford's apparently redone the cloth a little bit to make it look a little nicer or whatever. This is a nice tan color. These are indeed power operated. It's a little basic for controls, but you've got plenty of adjustment, and then you've got lumbar that goes just in and out. Ford blessedly kept the manual headlight control. That is automatically better than what GM is doing. And then looking inside, you've got a couple of screens. You've got an updated steering wheel, kind of updated dashboard, all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and hop on in. And before we talk about any of that, I'm gonna talk about the key real quick, because this is an XLT. This is not the base XL, but if you want a push button start, you have to get a Lariat, because this still has a real key. This is the key that debuted with the 2013 Ford Fusion, and Ford's still using it on this base model Ranger. So you do indeed have a key slot right here by your knee, and you insert this in there and you turn, and that is how you start the truck. If you're younger than like 25, that might have been the first time you've seen this, unless you like older cars and drive older cars. But that's how that works. So it doesn't really bother me. It's just kind of an interesting little thing. Now, if we take a look at the dashboard here, this being the XLT, this has the smaller of the two gauge cluster screens, and I'm honestly okay with it. The higher end one will be a full digital cluster that is, I think, 12 inches. This is only 8, maybe it's 10 inches, whatever it is. It gets bigger. What you can see here is the fuel and temperature gauges are kind of LEDs instead of being a digital screen. But either way, this whole centerpiece is a screen, and you've got a tack, you've got your driver assistance stuff here. You can pull up different pieces on this right side if you would like. This one I've got set up to see trailer information. So you've got pitch, you've got steering angle, and if you hit the brakes, you see you've got your trailer gain there. Now you can, of course, go and see whatever else you want. So if you want any of that, that's totally fine, but I'm gonna go back to towing. It's nice you can see trailer light status if you want that. Go ahead and turn the lights on. And look at that. I've got real switches. I love that. So you've got a status check for all your trailer lights. That's all good. But we're gonna go back to towing status. Now looking over here, this is going to be the bigger of the two touchscreens. This is a 12-inch touchscreen running Sync 4, and this does have CarPlay built in. You can see I've got it up here on my phone, and the way this is laid out is you've got this big square for CarPlay, so that's fine. Android Auto will fill the same space, and then up top you've got kind of a status bar with a couple quick options. You've got all your controls. It's easy to get at your settings right there. That's fantastic. And then you can hit this and pull up your camera views as well. So that's also nice and easy. And if you look further down, all this kind of white space persists. So this is always going to be here. So you've got your climate control, and some of this is redundant given you've got physical controls right here, but some of it is not. So you've also got like your heated seat buttons here, you've got your airflow controls, that sort of thing. So it's nice that it's there all the time, and this has dual zone climate on this model, so that is nice to have. Now Ford also does give you a real volume dial, which is fantastic. I know they've got the dual zone climate thing going on here, but I always want to use this one for volume, not the center. That's just something you'll get used to. Now looking further down, this is also something that'll be different based on which trim level you get, is the shifter. So this is going to be a traditional shifter, so foot on the brake, and you know, something that you can move between the gears that is a physical shift lever. On the higher trim levels, you're going to have an electronic shifter that replaces this, that you kind of, you know, push the button and slide. It's one of those monostable shifters. So I don't really have a preference, but this is fine. And you've got a manual mode with a shift toggle right here to control your gears. There are two USB ports down here, USB-C and A, and then some cup holders, of course. Your parking brake, a couple other quick controls, auto start stop, park assist. This one has a locking differential, which is nice to have, and your traction control. And then over here, this guy is going to be your drive modes. So you've got four-wheel drive controls here in the center. You twist for your drive modes for tow haul mode, sport mode, off-road, whatever. And then this is your trailer backup assist button if you need it. So generally a pretty nice cabin. I like what they've done for design and layout in here, and I've always thought Ford's software is pretty decent. I think they use the pixels well on the screen in the gauge cluster in particular. Now, I am curious to see the bigger screen because I've seen that on the newer F-150s, and that one I actually think they don't use the pixels as well. It's bigger, but I don't know if that is always better. So with all that, let's hit the road and see how this thing tows. All right, so towing with the 2024 Ranger with the 2.3 liter. Now, obviously, it's pretty easy to say, oh, well, it's a little slow on a flat road. Like, yes, that is very clearly going to be a thing we're talking about as power and torque here. But I wanted to get a little further out of town and get into some sort of mountainous, hilly type terrain as best I can without actually going to a racetrack and getting that far out of town. Because I think, you know, anything will tow anything well enough on a flat ground, but you know, hills are where things get pushed a little bit. So we're at least going to do what we can here. Now, worth mentioning, from a stop on flat ground, this is not especially quick. We'll hit it here in a minute, but it reminds me a little bit of my old Cayenne diesel that made 240 horsepower, and it was all torque, being a turbo diesel, and this is very similar. 270 horsepower is not a lot. It will get you going. It will take a long time to get there, but it will maintain the speed just fine. It's got one rate of acceleration. That's kind of the funny thing. Now, thankfully, having 10 gears means it works well enough to always maintain your speed, and it's not necessarily dramatic about it. So even on flat ground, it does a fine job, but power is absolutely going to be your biggest deficit here. Now, we've got a bit of a grade that I'm coming up to, and the truck is going to tell me what kind of grade it is. We're at 3%, which is pretty decent. We're doing about 60. I tow between 60 and 70 depending on the road and the conditions and the speed limit. And you know, this is holding 60 without a lot of drama. We're hanging around right around 3,000 RPM. Now, if I want to accelerate, this is okay. We're slowing down a bit. If I want to accelerate and put my foot in it, I'm in the carpet, we drop a gear, we're picking up speed just a touch, but this is, like I said, one rate of acceleration, and it's going to be churning for the sake of nothing too exciting as far as forward momentum is concerned. But it is doing it, and I'm honestly pretty impressed out of a 2.3 that it even wants to do this at all, to be honest. Now, I mentioned suspension was kind of a concern of mine because unloaded, this feels honestly kind of undersprung. I think it's got enough suspension control from the shocks, but it feels soft for the spring rates. And it definitely feels soft here too, but not as much as I would have thought it would affect anything. Obviously, having weight distribution and sway control hooked up would help, but stability is generally pretty excellent, actually. It's got a long wheelbase. That extra 2 inches helps a lot. It gives you about 128 inches of wheelbase, which is pretty long for a midsize truck, and I think that helps a lot. So that plus the extra track width they gave you, the stability here is really excellent. Now, when you're slowing down, obviously the tow haul mode will help with some engine braking. Ford has always been pretty good about that, especially with their bigger trucks. In this case, it will downshift and do some engine braking. It's not going to have a ton of engine braking from the compression, with this engine necessarily, but it does something to help. The brake pedal feels okay. Obviously, working with the trailer brakes, that's like no big deal. It feels pretty good in that regard. Unloaded, I have the same complaint about this brake pedal as I do with the Bronco Everglades from last week, where the 2.3 liter automatic brake booster, whatever that is, I think it might be part of the feeling, or the pad compound they've chosen, or both. The pedal takes a lot of travel and movement to really feel like it's slowing you down. It's less of a concern with the trailer brakes hooked up because the trailer now is helping you, plus you've got the weight of the trailer also just kind of helping slow you down and add some drag to the whole experience there. Not really a concern. If it was my truck, I'd probably put a grabbier brake pad on it just to make it feel a little better to me, but it's not really a concern. It's a nitpick thing. And then general stability, like I said, is good. Steering also is good. It's what you expect out of a truck like this. So generally, this is handling the trailer pretty well. Now, I mentioned the blind spot monitoring is not a thing on this truck with the trailer hooked up. It's got it when there's no trailer, but it doesn't know what to do when the trailer's hooked up. So it disables blind spot and cross traffic alert. And it's only a bummer because the bigger trucks do it. And I know Ford's got the tech, it just doesn't have it in this truck. What they do is they have cameras pointed down the side as part of that 360-degree camera package, so when you put your signal on, you do get a view in the screen that will show you looking down the side of the truck and trailer as best it can, so you get a little extra help with checking for blind spots and traffic. It works fine. Especially at night, it's really nice to have that blind spot monitor, the little light, just to help judge where traffic is if you're trying to change lanes in particular. So, that's all pretty fine and good. The other thing worth talking about is general driver comfort in here, and I think that is a little bit of a mixed bag for me, which is kind of a bummer. I think the seats, as nice as they look, are a little too sofa squishy for my taste, and keep in mind the cloth versus the leather might be different, so go sit in both if you're on the fence. The bigger concern I have is just that I am having a tricky time feeling like I've got a comfortable driving position. The seat goes up and down. I like the fact it adjusts up and down both at the back and at the front, so you can kind of wiggle your way up to be however you want, and then of course the seat back adjusts too. It's something about it is just not quite where I want for like my angle versus my headroom versus where my legs and my arms are, and it's not bad. I'm not uncomfortable, but this is not something about it. Maybe it's because I'm sinking too far into the cushion. I can't quite tell, but other seats have been better for me in other trucks in this segment. Visibility otherwise is pretty good. The mirrors are nice and big despite not being tow mirrors. I think you've got a pretty good view down the trailer, so that is fine. Good view out the front. All of your screens are nice and low, which I appreciate, so they're not really in the way, they're not distracting. And then, decent visibility out the sides and out the back. So that's all fine and good. easy enough to control all of your infotainment and things. Ford does have a really nice trailer setup configuration here. You put in your trailer's dimensions, you put in the trailer's curb weight. It actually, they took this trick off of the F-150 Lightning, where it will actually adjust your distance to empty calculation based on the trailer that you've got plugged in, and you can save a bunch of trailers in here. So I think that's really cool. Nice to have that for the sake of understanding your fuel range, and also I believe if you've used the built-in navigation with Sync 4, it will actually make sure you're not gonna, you know, go under any overpasses or anything that are too tall for your trailer. Generally mine won't be an issue. It's about 10 feet tall. So yeah, nice little touches there. I think Ford's software team is really trying. They're really doing a good job. Sync 4 is pretty snappy, easy to use, so I do appreciate all that. And the trailer controls and everything, like I said, are pretty nice. They've got a whole towing checklist. They've got a trailer light check. They've got, you know, mileage and MPG calculations, all that sort of stuff built in. And you can pick, like I said, a bunch of different trailers. So that is pretty good. Your trailer brake controller is going to be right up here by your knee. You can adjust your gain, and then the emergency slider is right there as well. So nice and easy to grab, nice, you know, in your reach without having to fumble for it. So I do appreciate where they've got that. And then otherwise, for being a mid-sized truck, this has pretty decent storage in here. You've got a couple big cup holders. You've got the big, you know, pockets for down by your feet. It's a decent cabin as far as how they've got it all laid out. So I do think this is a nice package, and like I said, it's towing well. All right, now I promised full throttle acceleration. This is going to be uphill on an on-ramp. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot in it. All right, there's 35. 45. 50. 55. 60. So, okay. Oh, come on, upshift. You got it, honey. There we go. All right, now we found like 8th gear. So, acceleration-wise, fine. It will do it. It is working real hard. And I think the 2.3 is... I have a hard time saying, yeah, I'd buy the 2.3 when I know the 2.7 exists. And I want to redo all this with the 2.7 and see how much better it is. This will do the weight, and I think if you've got mostly flat ground you're towing on, it will be fine. And if you're doing it infrequently, it will be fine. But I'm thinking of longer drives I do, especially, you know, from my area in the DC metro area down to VIR, for example. For me, that is a very hilly drive, especially coming home. It's all uphill. You're effectively crossing a mountain pass, and it is, I would say, probably 4 degrees, 4.5 degrees uphill pretty consistently through some kind of switchbacky bits. And this truck would do it, but I think it would be working harder than some of my friends at Last Call on a Saturday night the entire time. And that is, you know, okay, but knowing that the 2.7 liter exists, I think I would have a tough time picking the 2.3 knowing how I use a truck to tow. I think if you tow infrequently, that's one thing. If you don't tow as much weight, that's one thing. You know, if you're pulling 4,000 or 5,000 pounds with frequency, the 2.3 will feel pretty adequate for that. But I think, you know, it's nice that Ford rated effectively the chassis to pull this much weight, and they didn't certify by engine. But, you know, if you're bumping up against that tow rating, you want the 2.7. Other than that, this is a generally impressive package. I do think it is well thought through. I like a lot of Ford's tow tech and what they've got going on here to assist you. I do think the driver comfort for me is a little hit or miss. So that is one thing that, you know, again, every body is different, every human is different. So, you know, go do some sitting, go find a local dealership if you're interested in one of these, and just kind of see how it all feels before you say yes or no. And, you know, don't write it off, of course, but just something interesting. But in general, really nice package. I would just probably go with the 2.7, but it is sure doing it. So that is it for this review of the 2024 Ford Ranger XLT 2.3 liter. Thank you so much for coming along as always. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe right here on YouTube. Give us a follow elsewhere, and head over to outmotorsports.com to come join the community. We'd love to meet you, be your new best friends, and we're already planning events for 2025, so we'd love to have you for some or all of those. Till next time, stay safe, be well. See you for the next one.